Android devices. When you download, please make sure to rate and comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Hope you guys are doing well out there today. Things are doing well over on this side. This is the Sports Den. I'm Scott Churchson, alongside Mr. Obadiah Schottenfeld and Mr. Robert Stats. How you gentlemen doing?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Looking forward to another exciting day with you.
Oh. Yes. We are now premiering at this point on Restream versus Zoom, so it's a little bit of a leg up at this point. Green screen isn't quite working the way we want it to yet, but you know what? Honestly, I think for what it's worth, doesn't look that bad for me. You know, it kind of blends really well with like the pasty white side that I've got right now. If I had a pasty white background, you wouldn't see me anyway. So this actually is working out pretty well. Find us always on Twitter at SSW Sports Den and also on Facebook at Spangler Sports Den. We have a ton of stuff that we are going to be covering tonight. We're going to be talking MLB. We're going to be talking some NFL, some March Madness in there. We do have also the obscure sport called Bob, which we're going to be covering in about 30 minutes time. But you know what? I want to start this off. I think all of us are in line to what we're talking about here. But we recently came across the information, and I think we're all in agreement here, about the NFL's decision to now start a 17-game schedule. I don't know fully if you guys are in agreement, if we're all three of us are in agreement, but I'm about 85-90% sure on this. Rob, that was, I think, your suggestion first. So let's start off with that one. What do you think, man?
It's definitely a cash grab. Mm-hmm. It's going to make up for the salary cap after this season is going to skyrocket. So it makes you wonder how many agents were ahead of the game and how many front offices were ahead of the game with some of these deals that were, made in the last couple of weeks in the last month or so with free agency, because you got guys like, Juju took a 1-year deal, but then Kenny Galladay and some. Hold on, is my audio all right?
Well, no, basically this. Honestly, it's kind of a funky little aesthetic there. One could say it was a design choice. But yeah, it's got a little bit of a synthetic feel to it, a little bit more robotic going on. In the meantime, while we figure that part out, Obi, let me get your thoughts on it.
So I've always, I'm a little bit math guy, a little geeky for those who don't know. 162 baseball games, 82 basketball games, 82 hockey games, 16 football games. For those who can't do the math as quickly as that means this football game is equal to 10 baseball games, 5 hockey games, and 5 basketball games. Makes when you look across these sports, pretty easy to compare what's going on. We know 95, 100 wins is a big season in football. It's only a 50-win basketball season. It's only a 10-win football season. That's number one. Number two, we've seen the way just the counting numbers in season and over careers changed when they went from 12 to 14, 14 to 16. One game's going to make a huge difference. We had a conversation on this show a couple weeks ago about Phillip Rivers. Now, all those guys who were close to him, and you guys are saying, yes, he's in. I'm saying, no, he's not. One extra game a season to catch him. Mm-hmm. I don't particularly like that. And I don't think that you gain anything in determining who the champion is. Football does a really good job with its smaller playoffs of usually getting the best team. Occasionally you do get a team that's hot and on a run, and it's great. But most of the time, the 2 of the 4 best teams in the regular season are meeting in that Super Bowl, and you get a winner that you feel is a culmination of a season. The other point that comes up is player safety. Honestly, I'm a horrible person maybe, but I'm not concerned about the player safety. I am concerned that they have as much information as possible to make the choices between their salary and their safety. And nobody really studied what this extra game is going to do to them. They're just throwing it out there. And again, to a guy like Alvin Kamara, who's speaking up, I hope and feel like he's speaking up for everybody. For him, we're talking millions of dollars a season. It's probably an easier decision than the guy who's like, I've taken the 2 seasons, I'm taking my shots, I'm really beat up. Do I want this $500,000 one more time, or is this too much to do to my body for the reward? So the players are giving incomplete information, and that I really dislike about it from their side. So yeah.
How's my audio now? Is it better?
Much better.
Okay. Yeah, because it's the new program. I didn't switch to my studio mic. It was on my webcam mic. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was saying too. When I didn't sound like an '80s remix machine.
Mr. Roboto.
Yeah, it's like you have to wonder how many agents knew what was going to go down, how many front offices knew with the deals that went down. The salary cap's going to boom after this year just because you have an extra game now. You're not going to have empty stadiums, but it's also obviously the player safety. It's the big issue. It's been the issue for years that Roger Goodell sits there in his little office in New York and goes, "I care about player safety," but every week we're going to have a Thursday night game. And now we're going to have 17 regular season games. But they're like, oh, well, we're cutting out the 4th preseason game, which they didn't play in anyway. That was the scrubs trying to make the team, as Bart Scott put it this afternoon on the air. But it's a cash grab. It's to make up for a lot of the money they lost in the 2020. So it's and one of the things I heard this afternoon about it was like the records that are going to fall. And I think like the first record that's going to fall is like the passing yards. Season passing yards, which was the one that people thought, oh, that was like the least likely to fall. Like Greeny was like, oh, the most receptions in a season will fall. I'm like, I don't know, because you'd still have to average almost like 8 receptions a game. Some guys don't get that all the time. They get 5 or 6. But you could see Derrick Henry break the rushing record for a single season now because he's been close in 16 games. If you give him a 17th, he might do it. A lot of the records are going to start to come into question if they get broken because you have that extra game. You might see the sacks record. Most sacks in a season get broken. Strahan's record. Yeah, that is the most broken. That record is like the most tainted record of all time because everyone who's held it, like when they've held it, there's been like an asterisk or like a questionable like surrounding to it, like. Brett Favre nobody blocked and he fell down, and Strahan just walked over and tapped him. Like I was like, come on, man! And nobody liked Gastineau when he had it because Gastineau was considered a scab for crossing the picket line during a strike. So but it's gonna, like I said, it's a cash grab, and it'll be interesting to see. It's gonna be interesting to see how it affects fantasy football, and also like there's gonna be a ton of money made on gambling now because it's an extra game that you get to gamble on, prop bets and money lines and all that other stuff.
Here's my take on it. Originally I did come out and I hate it and I don't like it right now, but I do have some counterpoints to my own argument on this. Yes, I do concern myself with player safety. Yes, it is an unbridled, unquestionable cash grab. I mean, that's all it comes down to. But I am also curious in this case here. The three of us have pretty much spent our entire lives being used to a 16-game schedule. We didn't really follow football that much when it was a 14-game or even less than that schedule. Are we looking at this through the wrong set of eyes? Are we looking at this from the perspective that maybe it's just something we don't like the change of and we'll get used to it? People complained when NFL went to 16 games. People complained, my father complained big time, when Major League Baseball went from 154 games to 162. In his mind, Roger Maris did not break the record in 61, because he got the extra game out of it. Hank Aaron, he had a hard time with that one also because Hank Aaron had, more games across a longer career. Now, I give Aaron full credit on that one because you have the longevity. But I almost wonder if it's just you're so stuck in the system of things that you don't want to embrace and accept change. Again, I understand the player safety part. I understand this is a pure money aspect of things and nothing else but that. But I almost wonder, will people in turn learn to embrace it when it gets closer to, playoff time, when things are getting more down to the wire? We hated the change when it came to the second wild card, and all of these various things, but we've come to accept it for what it is. Is that going to happen here?
So I think I'm good with change. I'm gonna push back a little. I liked the one card wild card when it came out. I was very excited about that. I remember when they realigned to these new divisions. I was happy with that because when they realigned to these divisions, if you recall, when there was only 3. We actually went from 4 strengths of schedule games down to 2. Now we're going to go back up to 3 strengths of schedule games. I love that the last game is a strength of schedule game. So that I do like about it. If you ask me what I most love, I think there should be more strength of schedule games. So that's great for me. There's enough that's wrong with this just from hey, let me propose to you a 17-game schedule. First thing that comes right, well, not everyone's home and away. The same, so if you had 18, at least I'd even feel less antagonistic towards it. although it'd be a real long season. I think there are other changes that could have been money grab changes that would have been better. Like even keeping the extra playoff team would have been a money grab. It's an extra game, but it's a huge paying game. Would have been a better money grab change. And yes, on the flip side to my own argument, I must be honest. Like I said, 16, 162, 82. I just like it.
Yeah, I can see the drop in the extra playoff game now because now you have 14 extra games in place. You had two playoff games that we dropped, but now you have another 14 extra regular season games that you're going to make that money off of. So that's where it's like addition by subtraction in that aspect.
Like I said, I think in this case here, from my understanding, now correct me if I'm wrong, the 17th game is being played against the opposite conference. So it wouldn't affect the divisions as much in this particular case. It's more of a, honestly, it's a game that wouldn't, basically make that much of a difference as much of a difference as though it was in conference or even worse in division. I'll give it a shot. USFL had an 18-game schedule, and I have very fond memories as a kid of the 18-game, spring schedule for the USFL for all its 3 years, rest in peace. So I'm willing to give it a whirl. I am, like I said, you worry about player safety. If they can figure out some way to expand the rosters or something, okay, maybe they can figure out, they can do something to protect the players a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's a wait and see approach. That's kind of my attitude on this whole thing. So, all right. So I think we're good with that one. Find us, as always, on Facebook at Spangler Sports Den and on Twitter at SSW Sports Den. Moving on to college basketball. We got a couple of things that we really want to cover here. We're going to cover Gonzaga. We're going to cover women's basketball, which I'm going to tie into something that I've decided to come up with right now called the shout out and shut up, which in this case ties a little bit into baseball as well. I want to give a shout out to ABC because for as long as I can remember, and I think a lot of you guys as well, women's basketball has always taken a back seat to men's basketball, both on the professional level and also on the college side. I want to give really a lot of cred and a lot of props to ABC for putting their game on Sunday right up against Gonzaga. And I thought that was a very gutsy move. I thought that was a very impressive move that they were willing to try and do that. Now, I don't know what the ratings were, but something like that had never really been done before. So I want to give a shout out and a prop to that. Additionally, I also do want to give a shout out as well to Ryan Rucco of the Yes Network. I've watched that man grow from the bottom to now doing play-by-play for women's basketball on a national stage. So I want to give a double shout out to those of them in this case. I want to give a shut up to Francisco Lindor because Francisco Lindor has turned down a 10-year, $325 million contract offer from the New York Mets to push for a 12-year, $385. So in this particular case, when he's been offered a $10 million or 10-year deal, almost $350 million at age 27, which would carry him to age 37, he's like, no, give me 12. And I got, what? I did a poll earlier on Twitter. As of about 15 minutes ago when I last looked, 90.9% of the people that responded, and there was a fair number of people that responded to this, 90.9% are in favor of the Mets and what they tried to do versus Lindor. So it doesn't seem to be just my opinion in this case here. They believe the Mets tried. They put their effort in. 9.1% said they should bump the extra 2 years and give it to Lindor. But the overwhelming majority was like, give the Mets props. If he walks away, God, they tried. So
as a resident Met fan, I believe, Rob, you're a Yankee fan, right?
I am currently boycotting the Yankees, which
we must discuss also. Thank you.
Okay. So I did answer your poll. At the time of your poll, I had not heard about the 12-year request. I still feel that the Mets are doing their best there. I am less irked by it, knowing that it's 12 years, it's reachable. Those 2 years at the end, probably 4 years at the end, are going to be ugly for the Mets. But would the Mets get one or two legitimate shots in addition to this year over the course of that time frame? Maybe. And is that worth it? I think in a New York team, you have to say yes. You got to make that payment. Lindor says he's not going to negotiate during the season, so that gives an arbitrary deadline of like 5 more days. If the Mets want to hold off on talking to him about 12 years until the end of the season, that's okay too. So that's really where I feel. As a Mets fan who voted on your poll, you don't need to give into that 12 now. No need to rush into it. But on the other hand, if you accept that, that's fine. But if at the end, in the offseason, you can't come to a deal, that's good too. But I'm not as strong as I was at first. I was like, yeah, they made a good effort.
Okay. I think in this case, like I say, it might also hurt Lindor's numbers too. It might, he's taking a big risk, making sure that his numbers are going to be good this year to warrant that 12 years. Because you don't know, if he has a terrible season, the Mets may back off that 10-year deal.
Yeah, I didn't vote on it because I'm on a social media hiatus still, but yes, I agree with you.
We're almost done with Lent, so muzzle.
So it's I agree though that like they've made the effort. Like that's a big deal. Like that's a valid contract offer. He turns it down. It's not on them. But I will give a shout out to, similar to Scott's, to Jerry Recco of WFAN, who's a guy who I've known. He did play-by-play for my college when I was an undergrad at NJCU. He used his play-by-play tapes to get onto WFAN, and now he's obviously on the morning show at WFAN, and he's doing play-by-play for the tournament. So shout out to him. And somewhere in the corner of the internet somewhere is an audio clip. Someone will probably find it of me doing color commentary with him at an NJCU Rowan game, and it's me calling a bank shot like that somebody made from deep in 3. And I was like, I guess you don't have to call those in this gym. Like that was my great quote. But my shut up goes to the Yankees front office or ticket sales people, who this opening day fiasco thing is just ridiculous. For anybody who doesn't know, apparently somebody thought it was a good idea to sell tickets as if it was going to be a regular season without COVID restrictions or whatever. And people bought tickets for like $65 in good faith, thinking we're going to be at opening day. And then the Yankees turned around and said, nah, you don't have those tickets anymore. And they went to their like season ticket holders first, which I don't know why you wouldn't do that in the first place. Like, where's your loyalty? But it's been a fiasco over here. Like, people who made huge plans, like there were people calling up radio stations like, yeah, we planned a whole like wedding weekend around opening day and everything. But like the worst part for me, what's really gotten me aggravated about this is people bought tickets. They bought a ticket for say $65 for a game. Okay, you don't have that game available anymore, but the person should still be entitled to a ticket, like that ticket in that seat, that section, that wherever it is for $65. No. Now you just get a credit for $65, and that ticket that was $65 is now like $130. Like I expect this kind of shenanigans from like the Mets, whose ownership has like a history of Ponzi schemes and SEC violations. Like, and like this is not the Yankees' storied franchise, like the Bronx Bombers that we know. I'm like,
I think you give the Steinbrenners too much credit, though.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what though? Like, I guess for like us growing up, like George owned it. Like when George Steinbrenner was there, like he'd be like, "Oh, it's on me." Like nobody's taking responsibility and stepping up. Like, dude, just compensate them. Like you owe people tickets, eat it. I understand it's gonna suck because we're coming out of like 2020 where you didn't make a lot of money. But guess what? You're still like, even with the Mets and all the free agents, people are like buying Yankee tickets in like as soon as they're available, they're selling out. So eat it. Like eat it. The people that you owe a $65 ticket to in like the bottom tier, eat it.
Remember, you're talking about the franchise that when they signed Mike Mussina to a then 6-year, $82 million deal, cut dental for the employees to make it happen. Let's not deny that for a second.
Oh, God. Yeah, but at least they own it. Like, own it. Like, somebody just, like, this is kind of like nobody – it's been like the big riddle. Like, everyone's like, what's going on? And it's like, just own it, man. Like, that's what's bothering me. So I'm not rooting for the Yankees until these fans are, like, compensated properly. That's my strike.
Figure it out. If there's enough, blowback on it, they'll do something to figure it out. But yeah,
I'm sure if you're talking
store credit.
If you're talking thousands of fans, like you're probably going to end up with a class action suit from the fans, and any rational judge is going to be like, you owe them a $65 ticket in Section 105.
Season starts on Thursday for them too.
Yeah,
on ESPN. So, okay, so cool. So we're now 420. Shout out and shut up. Obi, I dropped that on you last minute, so I know you didn't have time necessarily to plan it. If you got one, fire away, please.
I have one, which I think might lead to is a perfect, I think, lead into where we want to go. So I want to give my shout out to Sedona Prince. For those of you who don't know her, the Oregon Women's Basketball Center. She was one of the folks who brought up the situation with the gyms in the women's tournament. But I kept following her afterwards, and so I became an Oregon Duck fan for that part of the tournament. They're out, but right after she lost, her next TikTok of everything she's been doing was just like, "Hey, we lost. I know a lot of you watched because of me, and you became an Oregon Duck fan. Watch the rest of the tournament. Keep watching. All the fighting I'm doing is so that you guys can keep watching and enjoying the tournament." And that didn't get the kind of coverage that her earlier TikToks did. So shout out to Sedona for that. Great follow-up TikTok while she enjoys her downtime at home.
Okay, can I also shout out Oral Roberts, who
Yes.
I randomly picked 3 weeks ago. It's like, I want a team like Oral Roberts to go on a run. And we have the private chat between all of us on Facebook Messenger, and every day all these guys every time they won, all the guys kept getting was me in caps, Oral Roberts. So I will shout out them. So they were the nice mid-major team that went on a run, so it was good.
Serious props. So, but yeah, in the topic of college basketball and women's college basketball, there has been a little bit of heat been going on right now. There was not just one, but two flagrant non-calls in the Baylor UConn game. Had this been basically early on in the game, it wouldn't have made a difference. But there was a possibility, there was a potentiality of Baylor actually being able to win on that final drive with the remaining 4 seconds left. If we had the video, can we actually play that right now? And if we can, I'll just keep talking until we do. So, there we go. Turn around.
She looks stunned. She's like, wow.
Yeah. What?
Oh, God. Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Two
definitely
non-calls.
forward.
Yeah.
At least on 3. Right? The first, I mean, that's not even 20 is a little more upright and coming left to right and goes a little more vertical, but 3 definitely is. That's I work games, and this how many times I see this from the refs is they came down on her. They came down on her.
And that's, like I said, there's been some problems in there as far as what's been going on with the officiating. That one especially, because that in the end absolutely just sealed it for UConn. They scored 1 point on the free throw, but by that point, the end result was the end result. But Baylor had the opportunity to come out and pull out a victory, and it had them taken away on multiple no foul calls. I think in this particular case, it's strange, but I think in some ways it's going to put more of a spotlight on women's basketball, which could, I would go to say maybe it's not maybe there's a silver lining to it, because any press is good press. And ironically enough, I think in this case, this could be a benefit in the grand scheme of things if done correctly. But at the same token, if UConn is able to go all the way, this is going to be something that's going to be looked back on very, very heavily. Did they really earn it, or did they dodge a bullet? LeBron came out and talked about it as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were saying too, when you get to the tournament, one of the biggest issues is you don't have this. It's like a mashup of different referees from different crews. So it's not people were saying is this the same crew that's worked together all season? Because a lot of times when you're with the same crew, it's kind of like with football and baseball. When it's more like probably football. People know where to look. Okay, with basketball, it's like that. When you work with the same 2 other, I think it's 3 refs in each basketball game, you kind of know how to rotate. So-and-so went down. And I see it all the time. Another ref will dart across the court to fill in because the one ref went down to the baseline, and they just know how to cover the court better because you're familiar with where your partners are going to be. And it could have been a thing, too. Was anybody in position to actually make the call properly? And they could be like, well, I was over here, and she was over there, and he was over there, and nobody could really make the call clear and concise so you don't blow the whistle. And plus, if it's a mashup of different people from different crews, you don't know how, they said the game, it was very inconsistent from what I heard from start to finish. They were calling some hard fouls, and they were letting them play, then they were calling ticky-tack stuff. And it all depends on who's got the whistle and who's in that position. So when it's a crew that's familiar with each other, you tend to have a little more stability and consistency in the type of calls. But even the officiating was the last of the things I heard of, because I was working a college volleyball tournament while I was away, and we were getting a scoop on the poor conditions at the tournament, and the quote was Fire Festival like sandwiches for lunch. And I was like, really? And I saw a picture, it was like a cheese sandwich. I was like, no. So the NCAA, I mean, they're going to get a little bit of a pass because of, it's still COVID. They're coming back after a year of not having the tournament. But yeah, there's this year's tournament's been muddy waters in a lot of other areas too. So it's not just the officiating. It's been rough for them in a lot of other areas.
But it's got people talking. And I think that's a big thing now. I think it helps. In some ways, it's bizarre as it is, the Astros getting the win and how that whole debacle happened. It got a lot of attention to Major League Baseball. And I think that's something that, that women's college basketball can rally around. Like I said, they were on ABC opposite Gonzaga and Creighton. That is a gutsy move, and that was something that was never done before. That would, they'd be on ESPN2. They'd be way down the ladder there. But you're seeing that change happen. Rob, I know this makes you happy, but women's hockey is now on like MSG all the time. Yeah. Kenny Albert does the play-by-play, which also props. I've been a big fan of Kenny Albert. So you're seeing that change kind of happen. So this could have a silver lining in the grand scheme of things.
I don't forget, Baylor had a double-digit lead in the second half.
True.
So anytime you lose a lead that big, you probably lost the game on that bad call. But a lot had to happen to get you to that bad call. Mm-hmm. And the best player in college basketball is, surprisingly enough, on UConn, and the best coaches in UConn. And Baylor's a strong program. They are a great women's basketball program, but they did not put themselves in a position to hold the lead and win that game. So there comes a point, especially at the end of the game, had they called that foul, do we all talk about now, are you supposed to swallow the whistle at the end of the game, let them play? That's a pretty horrific foul, but we hear that all the time as well. So it goes back and forth. There's been a number of bad calls, though, like you said, leading the news, leading the women's basketball tournament news has been a number of bad calls, and then to what's going on with it. But the tournament's been great overall. The biggest upset, of course, happened to my tournament winner prediction in Rutgers. It's a pretty chalky tournament in the women's bracket, but that's the way that bracket works out. So.
Yeah, at least on the men's side, like I said, I'm still pulling for Gonzaga all the way through. They pretty much cruised against Creighton the other day, so I'd like to see them actually go perfect in this case. Next game tonight, 7:15 Eastern. So be curious to see how they play out against USC. Any other final thoughts, gentlemen, on that topic? As I'm rocking out my Married with Children poke high shirt.
No, I'm good on it. It's happy. I think I speak for everybody. We're happy we have the tournament back. Plain and simple. I know the NIT was back as well, and hopefully next year, like a lot of the mid-majors I work at, they end up in with the college invitational tournament, CIT. So hopefully everything will be back in full swing next year, and everybody will have even more college playoff basketball.
Exactly. A little bit more popular next year as well. Okay, so we are now at 4:30, so we're 30 minutes into the show at this particular time. Find us always on Facebook at Spangler Sports Den and on Twitter at SSW Sports Den. At the 30-minute mark of the show is the time where we usually talk about the obscure sport of the week, where we are going to sit here and start to review whatever weird sport that is around the world. This one came from my wife, Robin. It was her suggestion to pull this one up, so props where it's due. This is a sport called BA, which is literally just BA. It's basically what's referred to as mob football. It is popular in Scotland. Scotland has been around for about 300 years in certain places. If we've got the video, I just want to play it. I just want to have that played real quick. Go for it, sir. Okay. Whatever town you live in is the team you play for.
Well, no, this was two different sides of a town. The Uppies and the Donnies.
Generally speaking,
Yeah.
Yeah. So the object is to really take the ball and get it past the goal line. which is up and down various streets, up and down various blocks. It's all mapped out ahead of time. As you can see, it is really hard to figure out who's on what team here. It is a literal scrum where supposedly it is very common for people to have broken ribs, broken ankles, fall down, step on, get trampled, and all of these things where tempers are really running pretty high. Normally takes place between Christmas and New Year's, which, if you know Scotland, can be a little on the cold side as well. But I have a feeling, much like New Year's Eve at Times Square, you were in such a cramped space like that, you're probably not very cold. But yes, this is the fine sport of Ba, which is supposedly very popular on a regional level. Gentlemen, any thoughts?
I guess I go first, right? That's how we roll here.
Obi's our leadoff for this.
Yeah, Obi's always our leadoff as far as rating and grading this thing.
Yeah, so oddity, I gave it a B because not that odd. This feels like a full-blown whole town comes together for that Black Friday afternoon football game that I was always part of. There was always you got 17, 18 guys to play a game of football on the high school football field instead of football. It's like Ba. So it's not that odd. Just kill the man with the ball as opposed to football. Obscurity, I did give it an A. Being highly obscure because it is all over Scotland, but it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and becoming less and less popular unless towns are keeping their Ba games. I've got to imagine that you throw, when the town is all small huts, it's one thing, but when people start having businesses they need to protect, as we saw in this video, business owners become less impressed with the game of Ba, more impressed with protecting their storefront, and people become more concerned about their property the more civilized we get. So it's losing its popularity, although in this case, it was certainly a town that loved its game. Yeah. Playability, this is an A. I mean, who doesn't love a good drunken game to kill the man with the ball? That's what it is. You just all get together and you know who your team is because Bob and Joe are on your team, and Brian is not on your team this week. Tomorrow you'll be back out at the bar with him, but not today. But watchability, I gave this an F. It just looked like there was nothing to see there. You can't follow the ball. The guys who are playing can't follow the ball. The ball in the game, in the video you gave us, literally went missing. They're like, we think somebody's got the ball and is in hiding. Who can watch that? Maybe if you truly believe that if it ends up in the pier, you're going to get better fishing out of it, maybe you watch it. But overall, I gave it an F. And for rankings, it was number 4 on festival games, and it did not break the top 5 and score the ball.
All right, fine.
Yeah, Rob? I'm with. I thought this was the first time. This is probably my least favorite sport that we've covered so far. Okay. And just like oddity, obscurity, I gave it like a C- for both, only because we've covered Calcio Storico before, which is the Italian version, which is much more organized and much closer, much more of a sport than this. Like I said, this is basically like kill the man with the ball. So you don't kill anybody, but it's anybody, like playability, anyone can play it. Like drunk guys at a bar can play this. Like I have no desire to play it. I gave it like a D for playability just because it's so unorganized too though. Like there's no real feel. Like even when you play like two-hand touch in the street, you're like, okay, curbs are out of bounds, light poles are the end zones. This is like, oh yeah, you're gonna go up this street, you can go up this alleyway, you can go over the other alleyway. And like I gave it an F for watchability too, Obi. Like I was just like, what? They lost the ball. Like they're literally running around like, who has the ball? No one knew who had the ball. The best, like my favorite part of the video is probably the guy who made the ball, because they make a ball for every event. Like every year, he makes a different ball with like a different pattern, and he's like, the dude was talking. He's like, yeah, I have a dream every year. Like I have a nightmare that the ball pops in the middle of the game, and like, oh my god, like I'm gonna be an embarrassment. Like that was probably the most interesting part for me was that guy. But it's not. I can't even call it a sport because it's just so It's like, okay, get the ball from point A to point B, but there's no rules. They even say that in the beginning. It's like, oh, it's like football with or like rugby, but with no rules, or like there's just it's chaos. So yeah, it was even watching it. You don't even know where like he throws the ball in, and that's probably the last time you see it until the guy holds it up over his head at the end, where it like magically reappeared. What I honestly think happened in the video was somebody had like a kind of a fat suit pad on, probably dumped it out, got the ball, and then stuffed it under his shirt and was like, "Where'd the ball go, man?" And everybody just thought it was a chubby guy walking around the streets for 3 hours. But yeah, it's not. Yeah, this was my least favorite sport that we've covered so far. Overall, I'd probably give it like a D. And yeah, not a sport, but it was a good. I enjoyed the bagpipes and the songs they were playing in the middle. It reminded me of Rowdy Roddy Piper's entrance song. I was getting all amped up by that.
Well, in that case, Rob, I apologize. I'll try and do better next week. I'll try to have something that will suck actually a little bit less if it's okay with you.
No, it's good. We need it.
I'm very sorry.
No, it's good because we need it. It's like when Jesse James had Monster Garage, and the first time he built his car, they were like, "No, this is great because it shows it's real. Like, there's things that we're gonna like and things we're not gonna like." So it was a pleasant disappointment for me, as crazy as that sounds.
But it's one of the things where I think in my case I'm a little bit different from you guys on this one. Oddity, you know what? I got to be honest. I give it like a B as far as oddity goes. It's one of those things that I think it is unusual. But one thing I will talk about is the fact that I love the fact that it has such a communal excitement, where it you don't see that sort of thing as much anymore. Now, granted, Obi, you did say that things, people are more concerned about the storefronts. Times are changing, and they are. But it's such a family, it's such a family and friend gathering as a tradition that you see just the sheer amount of people that are not just playing it, but watching it. And that communal aspect, I think, adds a little bit to what the benefits of it are. Is it odd? Yes. Never heard of this thing until basically I saw the video. But I love that part of it. Stupidity, I don't know. I'm going to give it a C in this case because I find it basically, again, it could be a lot of fun. You push against their side, they push against your side. There was an instance, if you watch the video, there was a point in there where they talked about how all of them inadvertently got stuck in an alley for 2.5 hours because they were so wedged together that they couldn't get themselves physically back out again. And 2.5 hours, they were literally stuck inside this alley and they couldn't get out, So I got to admit, from a stupidity standpoint, yeah, that's going to add to it. Playability, again, like you said, pretty much anyone can play as long as the knees and the joints are healthy. You got to watch. You got to be careful a little bit because there can be injuries in something like this. If things get away, you could trip, you could fall, and you have to rely on someone to pick you up or else you're going to get trampled. I had that on a film set once. To this day, I do not know who the person was that grabbed me by the arm and picked me up and took off running. But I went to immediate fetal position as I was getting stepped on. So you got to be careful about stuff like that. So from a playability standpoint, I'm going to give that one only a C+ because I do worry about the overall health of the people involved. Watchability, I got to give it like a D+ in this case here. It's kind of funny to watch a bunch of people get together like that, but after a while, you don't see the ball. You just see, 50 people on one side, 50 people on another, and just pushing together and just kind of going one way or the other. And it's like, okay, well, that's kind of fun to watch for like nine seconds. Now you're good. So in this case, yeah, it's not one of my personal faves either, but I do like it from the standpoint that it is unique. And I do like it from the perspective that, again, to me, it was honestly just it's just, I like the communal standpoint to it. I like the fact that everybody gets together. I think it's a big part of it and kind of a lost art in today's 2021.
I think with this particular event, less is more in terms of the competitors. I think maybe kind of documenting it brought more people out to try and get involved, which is turned it into a mob. Yeah, it turned it into a mob. So if you cut it down to like 50 people on each side, which even sounds like a lot, it's probably a lot more entertaining to watch and easier to keep track of what's going on. So yeah, I think it was the number of participants was a little overkill. But yeah, I do, and it's very similar to Calico Story Go. It's got that cultural vibe to it and everything. The the community bond. There were some people in the video who they were saying they don't talk to their neighbor on the day just because it's like, okay, well, we'll talk tomorrow. Like we'll see. They take the day off from each other. So it's the guy. One of the guys kind of narrating it was funny though because I always wondered what Evander Holyfield would sound like with a Scottish accent because he sounded kind of punch drunk. It was like the up ace. The uppies are thieves. You better put your money deep in your pockets because they'll go in there and they'll snatch your money.
Don't you be telling me nothing right now. Actually, that's Irish. Sorry, that's
it's uppies and downies, which is like downies basically. Yeah. Like you go downy, we're gonna go downy down to the dokes.
Which is weird because I know there's a Scottish filmmaker by the name of Chris Downey. His Twitter handle is Uppy Downey, and now I got to ask him why. So, but all right, so we got a little over 10 minutes left. Find us always on Facebook, on Spanglish Sports Den, and on Twitter at SSW Sports Den. We've got just enough time, I think, in this particular case to give some MLB predictions, divisions, wild card, and everything like that. I want to get your thoughts on this. I figure let's start off. Let's start off in the NL East. In this case here, Obi, you're a Mets fan. Rob, you're an anti-Yankee fan. So let's start in the NL East. Division winner, and is there going to be a wild card coming out of it?
Are we doing AL or NL, did you say?
NL East.
NL East, I like the Braves to win the division and the Mets to come out as a wild card.
Agreed. Rob?
Yeah, I'll go with. I agree with that as well. I think we talked about it earlier. Like people kind of sleep on the Braves. Like everybody was giving all these other teams props because the Braves the Braves didn't have to do anything because everybody else was catching up to them.
So yeah, I think the Mets have improved very well in this case. I don't like to think of I like to think of the Marlins as having basically a lucky year last year, but a lot of people are talking about the Marlins dropping below 500, and I think it's plausible. I think a lot of people were unprepared, and I think a 60-game season gave them the playoff push that they needed. I'd love to see the Marlins do better. I'd love to see Don Mattingly and that team go further, but I think teams are going to be ready for them, and I think they're going to hit around 500. My last place team, going to be honest with you on this one, I'm going to go with the Phillies with this one. But yeah, first place, second place, I think we're all in agreement this case. Braves and Mets there. Mets will get into the wild card. NL Central, any thoughts?
Ooh.
And basically, the winner of the division, and does a wild card come from it?
No wild card.
No wild card.
I'm sitting here trying to remember what teams are in the division right now.
I think we all are going to be agreeing on who the other wild card team is going to be, but we'll get there.
Unless we disagree on who the division winner is going to be over there. But yeah, so I think I'm going to take the Cardinals here.
Agreed. Rob?
Yeah, because the Cubs are rebuilding. I don't even know. Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. I don't even know,
Milwaukee has something to say.
Oh, it's the Brewers. That was literally that's where I was like, who is the other team? Because I was like Pittsburgh, St. Louis, the Cubs. I'm missing a team. Yeah. I'm taking the Cubs, division winner, no wild card.
You're taking the Cubs, no division.
I'm sorry, the Cardinals, St. Louis, division winner, no wild card.
Okay. So far we're all in alignment. This is so far really boring, and I don't think it's going to be changing on the next one here. NL West.
Dodgers win. Padres are our other wild card team.
Yeah. The LA Dodgers, who actually have David Price starting the year in the bullpen and not even as the fifth starter, because the evil empire now is no longer the Yankees. It is, in fact, the Dodgers. When you have Dodger money. You
know what, though? I looked him up. He's 35, dude. He's not 2014 anymore when he was on the Rays and he was dominant. It's been a long time since he's been – and he didn't pitch at all last year.
That's also part of it. They're maybe trying to work him in slowly.
Yeah. I think what you may see, because Clayton Kershaw is 33, and he's not getting any younger. I think both of them have more innings behind them than they do ahead of them. You might see Clayton pitch for 3 or 4 weeks and then take a vacation for 2 weeks, and then David Price come in and be the guy to pitch, and Clayton come out of the bullpen, and they're going to save their arms and try to turn back the clock a little bit and get those guys back to when they were 28 and 32, respectively. And, yeah, I wasn't surprised by it at all, his age and not pitching last year. It makes total sense. Dave Roberts is doing over there.
Sure. But any other team would not be doing that right now.
Oh, but any other team isn't in that position to do that.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually repeat, and we'll go down that road in a minute. There was something else I wanted to add about the Dodgers, but I forgot about it.
Justin Turner FaceTime videos? Have you seen anybody who doesn't know? Justin Turner calls his teammates. He FaceTimes them. And when they pick up, he goes, dude, is this important? Can I call you back? I'm in the middle of doing something. Hangs up. And he got Dave Roberts. He tried to get Cody Bellinger, and Cody Bellinger cursed him out. He's like, no, I know what you're doing. Stop. And he yelled at him. But Dave Roberts was completely lost. He's like, Coach, can I give you a call back? I'm in the middle of something. And Roberts was like, yeah, okay. What?
All right. So closing out the NL. So we've got the 3 division winners. We've got the 2 wild card. Who takes the pennant?
I'm gonna say I'll stick with the Dodgers. I got my LA friends out there who are big Dodger fans, and it's theirs to lose. Like they haven't gotten any worse, and like they get David Price back. You know, they think they lost like a couple of guys, maybe from the bench role players, but I think they'll be fine. I think they're still going to be, you know, the team. It's their pennant to lose. It's their National League title to lose. So I'm sticking with the Dodgers.
Obi, any disagreement?
It's hard to pick against the Dodgers, so I'm just going to spoil my World Series pick and say I'm taking the field against the Dodgers to win the World Series. So I don't know when they're going to lose, but that is my big, not the Dodgers to win it all.
They win until they don't. Actually, I remember what I was going to say. David Cohn is talking about how in baseball now it's no longer a 5-pitcher team anymore. It's now a 7-pitcher starting pitcher team. You know, where you need so many to come in and replace and give people a break at this point that, I mean, obviously when we grew up, it was 4, you know, and then in the playoffs, it was 3. And then your 4th was a reliever. Sid Fernandez in the 86 Mets was the reliever. Now you're looking at 6. A lot of times he even said 7. You need to have 7 starters now to give these guys the break that they need. So, all right. So on the AL East side, I think it's going to be a little bit interesting here. I think I'm going with the Yankees as the division winner, and this is going to annoy. We got about 7 minutes left. Perfect. Perfect amount of time. I'm going to annoy basically the Toronto fans in this case here, but I'm going to say that Toronto's going to miss the playoffs this year. I'm going to say, despite everything they've lost, never count out Tampa. Tampa's going to take the wild card on this one.
Yay, we have a disagreement.
I thought we might.
Because I will take the Yankees to win the division. Obviously, the only thing that stands in the way of the Yankees is availability for the heart of that lineup. But that lineup is just nuts. Again, as it's been what feels like my entire lifetime, since 1927, to be honest. I do think the Blue Jays did enough. I think their young talent is going to shine. I think Guerrero is going to figure it out, and I will take the Blue Jays to make it out as the wild card team.
I thought that basically someone would disagree with me. Rob?
Blue Jays #1. Blue Jays. The Blue Jays going to win the division. When I was in Babe Ruth baseball, that's how we pronounce Blue Jays. All my Latino friends, they're like, Blue Jays. We play for the Blue Jays. Yeah, I'm being a little bit of a homer here. Taking the Blue Jays to win a division, and the team that I refuse to root for until further notice should be good enough to win the wild card.
Oh boy, that would annoy the team you refuse to root for. Wow, if you don't win the division, basically it's failure. It's failure right out of the gate. Even if they won the World Series, hypothetically as the wild card, fans will be still like, really? You had to get into the wild card that way. So okay, in basically the the AL Central, I got the Twins and I got the White Sox in that order.
So I'm also taking the Twins and the White Sox in the reverse order, although the Elo Jimenez injury does scare me. But I still like the White Sox. I still like to see La Russa pull off one more from another place. That'd be fun to see. But yeah, I'm going to take the Twins as the wild card, but still the White Sox.
Okay.
I'm going to take the White Sox and no wild card.
Okay.
I think the Twins are that team that they're, instead of losing in the playoffs like they normally do, they're going to like fall apart in the regular season and not make it. So I'm taking the White Sox, no wild card. My wild card is going to be a surprise.
Well, I was going to say, obviously, it's got to come from the AL West. I have the Astros in this particular case. No wild card, but I want to continue with that one once you guys are done. So, Rob, I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'll take the Astros to win a division, and my sleeper pick, the Seattle Mariners. They're going to cash in on all those picks, all those prospects that they got from the Mets during the Wilpon era. They're coming to play this year, man, and that Cano trade's going to pay off. And they're my sleeper team. Like, don't sleep on the Mariners. Like, they can make some noise.
They need a playoff. They haven't had in 20 years.
I'd like Rob to know I'm wide awake. I'm taking Seattle to win that division.
Oh, okay.
I am. Yes, I am. I like that young team. And then my other prediction out of the West, I didn't do it on the NL side, but Mike Trout's Anaheim team will be good enough to give him an MVP because we all know his stats will be good enough for the MVP.
Yes, they will. So, all right. Now, here's the big question. Who takes the AL?
How many garbage cans do they have left in Houston?
I'm going to take the White Sox. Really high on the White Sox. Elo Jimenez's injury aside.
Yeah, you know what? It's because it depends on how it falls. Like I could see the White Sox depending on how the seedings play out. Because if you got to play that wild card game, and it only takes one bad start to get knocked out in the wild card game, and it could be anybody's. You could end up with like the White Sox and the Mariners. So I'll go with the White Sox too on that.
I don't think the White Sox are ready yet. Will they get in the playoffs? Yes. Will they go to the second round? Plausible. Right now, and I'm going back and forth on this one, with trying to decide between the Yankees, which frankly is the boring pick, and the Astros to take it as well. I like Dusty Baker. I always have. They're a year away from the scandal, so they got a little bit in the rearview mirror there. The animosity and the hate has definitely softened in that time. I'm going to go with the Yankees as the boring pick, but in 7 games and pulling it out by the skin of their teeth on this one. I believe in this case it is still the Dodgers, series to lose, especially with that payroll, especially with that starting staff. Starting pitching beats good hitting, and the Yankees have questionable starters. They got a lot of firepower if they can stay healthy. Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, now Luke Voit. There's some questions involved about whether or not they're going to stay healthy, but good pitching. Trevor Bauer, Kershaw, David Price coming out of the bullpen. You've got such a powerhouse, such an arsenal there that they might be the first team in 20 plus years to repeat. So in this case, I would actually go so far as to say probably the Dodgers in 5 over the Yankees. Really to finalize the position. So, all right, we got 2 minutes left. Gentlemen, any final thoughts?
I'm just going to
go.
What's that?
I'm just going to show for my show once again. Me, my Scott, and I, usually 10 p.m. on Friday nights. We're off this week. And we are looking for a bottle of Ron Burgundy, Great Odin Raven Special Reserve Scotch Whiskey. So if anyone out there can help me find a bottle, that's Twitter @ScotchAndI. Thank you.
Perfect. Rob?
I'm just hoping we have an exciting conclusion to the NCAA tournament on both sides. And once we get baseball started, and we'll see what happens with the NFL draft and some other things coming up. By the way, Deshaun Watson's still in Houston.
He's still in Houston, yes. All
The only
right.
place he might be is prison.
That is going to do it for us. This show can be heard on 35 plus different platforms. Probably the numbers can increase at this point across basically 4 different continents. Find us again on Facebook at Spangler Sports Den and Twitter on SSW Sports Den. For myself, Scott Churchson, Mr. Rob Stats, and Mr. Obi Schottenfeld, this is the Sports Den. Have a great night. Take care. Make it a great day. Be good.